Hey family at Crossover Bible Fellowship, this is Pastor Blake Wilson on behalf of the elders of the church, going live for the very first time on Facebook in light of everything that's been going on in Houston and in the Southeast region. Just wanted to share some heartfelt concerns, some love for the family there in Crossover and just all across the area and the region. So I want to share something that my dad shared with me a long time ago. When I was a little boy, my dad told me a story about when he was driving from Smithville, Texas, all the way to Austin, Texas, and found himself in the midst of a terrible storm, in the midst of a tornado. My dad told me that he was driving, and while driving the car, everything went black. And as everything went black and the wind started pushing real hard, he didn't realize he was in a tornado. And so he asked God, he said, God, would you give me a word? He was praying, driving in his car. And he said, God, will you give me a word? And he opened up his Bible and turned in it while driving. It was there in his passenger seat. Couldn't find anything. The first time he opened it up, said, that's not the word I'm looking for. Then he opened it up again and he said, God, I need a word from you. And he got to Psalm 57, verse 1. And so I want to read Psalm 57, verse 1 to you. Psalm 57, verse 1, it says, Be gracious to me, O God, be gracious to me, for my soul takes refuge in you, and in the shadow of your wings I will take refuge until destruction passes by. My dad told me that story as a little boy, and I've never forgotten it. It's just something that's always stuck with me. And as we're going through what we're going through, I just thought about Psalm 57, verse 1, thought about be merciful to me, O God. Be merciful to me, O God. Be gracious to me. In thee I take refuge. In the shadow of your wings I'll take refuge until the storm passes by. I think that God has shown us in the last few days just how simple our lives are in terms of being able to look at what matters most. And at the end of the day, it's not possessions, although they mean a lot, and that God has given us those things. God has told us with food and with shelter and with clothing we should be content. And some of those things are even being stripped away at this time. But we're so thankful that God is still a provider, still taking care of us. As we've checked in on Facebook the last couple of days, doing our family check-in crossover, just want to say how amazing it is to hear how many people are saying, I'm dry, I'm dry, I'm dry. And I know recently some of the catastrophic events have now been increased by the releasing of the reservoirs in areas that were not previously flooded or now flooded. And so that just devastates me, hurts my heart. And I want to say, reach out and just say thank you, first of all, to some people that have been serving from our church. We have police officers like Fred Harrison, David Joseph, Darren Sumner, Horatio Griggs, Robert West, and I apologize if there's some that I missed, but these men have been out in harm's way working 12-hour shifts. And one of the things that we could do is right now the police department is trying to feed 700 to 1,000 police officers who are working 12-hour shifts, and they need food when they come off their shift. Talked to one of my friends yesterday who's a police officer who had literally been working almost 24 hours straight, and called him, and he was trying to just get to the station, said, I'm going to be sleeping at the station because I can't get home. And so I want to thank the families of Fred Harrison, thank the families of David Joseph, thank the families of Darren Sumner and Horatio Griggs and Robert West for allowing them to serve our city well. Also want to thank Carlos Willis, J. Michael Frazier, who have gone out and actually rescued some members of our church. And there are people all over the city that are being rescued. And so while we have members of our churches that have been rescued as early as this morning off the roof of their home with two little girls, and those still awaiting rescue, and those who are getting flood waters now as in relationship to the reservoirs being released, we just want to lift up these families and lift up each of you that are out there. Last night I didn't go to bed till 5:45 this morning, literally in communication with members, talking to them, dialoguing with them, Facebook, Instagram, text message, phone, to all hours of the night, just couldn't sleep. And so just praying with deep concern. And now we want to turn our attention to the reality of the people have been saying, hey, Pastor Blake, from across the country, pastors have called from California, Illinois, New York, New Jersey, Pennsylvania, Georgia, Dallas, Texas, just from all over Iowa. Pastors have called in saying, hey, what can we do? And I want to thank those pastors personally for their phone calls. Pastor Crawford Laritz, Brian Carter, Eric Mason, Doug Logan, Brandon Watts, Ike Todd, Kerry Kokai, Eddie Velez, just various pastors, Taran Dames. Just want to say thank you for calling. These churches have asked, how can we help out when we get back? And so these churches are reaching out to help us. And so we need to be able to respond well. And so as a church, as we get back mobilized and the water recedes, we're going to gather together. And as we gather together, we're going to try to assess real needs. And I think that it's very interesting at the time that God has united us with our brothers and sisters, Houston Northwest and Pastor Steve Besner, the needs that they have as our brother and sister church has experienced just devastation with water inside their building. We're not depressed. We're ready to act. We're ready to restore and go back and do something to help others. And we want to help our brothers right down the street. They're going to have some cleanup crews going on. So if you go to Houston Northwest's website, as things dry out, we want to go over there and help them. Our building, as of right now, what we know has not sustained any water damage, any major water damage, but our brothers at Houston Northwest right down the road have sustained it. Churches across the city are devastated. Pastors' homes are also underwater. Right now, our family is safe, and we've yet to experience any water. But we want to keep our eyes open to the reality that there are issues going on. And so let us pray that God will use us now for the church to be the church. As we just spoke last weekend in Acts chapter 5, verse 12 through 16, I like this church. I believe that God has given us a chance to be the church that somebody could like right now. We're going to check on our facility and how it can be used during this time to help others and to resource others as a place to come as people are trying to get their lives back together. We realize that financially there are those who may not have received insurance. So churches have already stepped up and from across the country and said, Pastor Blake, man, we're going to take up an offering for you guys. And so as we look at what's going on and how to help, it's just the response has been overwhelming from pastors saying, hey, we're going to take up offerings for your church and for your people. But it's not just needed for crossover, and it's needed all across the state and the region. And so while Houston is hurting, Houston is devastated, don't forget the other cities, the other people who are experiencing great devastation. My heart had literally broken and just aching over the condition of our city and what's happening. And so my prayer is that we would say right now, God, use us, use our hands to meet the needs of people that are suffering. And so, Crossover fam, please check in. Let us know how you're doing. Let us know how you're doing. And when we get back on the ground and everything is ready, we'll be ready to serve. And so right now, let's let the church be the church. And let's reach out and see how God can use us to impact lives. There are going to be places to give on our website as well. So later on, we want to make sure that we're going to reach a spot. That's going to be worked out for us on the website. Nathan Alote is working amazingly, as he always does, to get us a site to where people can send in donations to give. 100% of those offerings will go to helping and relieving people and what's going on in their lives. And so be in prayer with us. And while we have been hit, we're not down. We know that our God is a restorer, and although we've experienced devastation, We believe we're going to experience some great unification of the church across the city. Black, white, Hispanic, Asian, Indian. Houston Church Planters Network is also just getting amazing responses from across the country. People saying we want to send resources to help the church at Houston and the people of Houston abroad. And I'm thankful for how God has entrusted Houston with this devastating situation to say you all can recover. But we're not going to recover by personal ability. We're going to recover by the Spirit of God and unifying around the needs of people and loving everybody who needs to be loved right now. So I want to thank you for this and, say family at Crossover. It's difficult not being able to touch each other right now. So sometimes the only way we're able to touch each other with the love of God is through Facebook. And as we can't get out of our neighborhoods and we're stuck in places, but when we get back, it's time to touch each other with the love of God and be who we said we are. So let's take that time to move to action to help people. And we have people still out there from our church that are in need of rescue, so be in prayer for them. And there are people all across the city, and so we're just asking that God would show up and do something amazing through us. And as we talked about 2 weeks ago, the apostles asked God to perform signs and wonders through his hands, and then he used their hands. And so it's our time for our hands to be used to help Houston and everybody we can. And so Crossover family, love you, and we'll be checking back with you real soon and giving you all the ways that we can help when we get back to church prayerfully this Sunday at the soonest. God bless.